Welcome back, everyone. I'm your host, John, and today we have Aric with us. Aric, where are you calling from?
Calling from sunny Arizona.
All right, how's the weather right now? Is it nice out?
It's going to get hot. We had a good week last week in the 80s and 70s, mid 60s at night. Uh, but now it did a 180, and I think we're looking at hundreds today, tomorrow, through the weekend.
God,
So, yeah, it's
yeah,
Arizona. And I think we got a little bit of a small, it'll taper down a little bit next week, but then it's right back up to triple, high doubles, low triple digit numbers. So
God.
yeah,
At least,
it's not the summer heat that draws people here. It's the winter time, right?
at least you don't have the humidity as bad. Like here in Florida, the humidity is so thick, it's disgusting.
Yeah, yeah. No, I got you. I'm originally from Wisconsin, and yeah, the humidity is. And my parents live in South Carolina, so yeah, the humidity is taxing. But when it gets to 110, 115, it's hot.
Yeah,
Yeah,
oh yeah.
yeah,
No matter, yeah, it's hot no matter what, but
right.
yes.
No, all good
So,
stuff.
Aric, are you married?
Yes, I am. I'm married. I have a wife and two daughters. Been
Okay,
married for 30, 32, 33 years. High school, went to high school together. Yeah, two daughters. My oldest is 26 and my youngest is 23. So,
very nice.
um, yeah, all good. Real, regular family guy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Aric, tell me about you. Let's jump into it.
So your blue collar podcast, right? So
Yeah.
blue collar covers a lot. My blue collar is heavy civil. I've worked in the heavy civil industry for probably 35 years. It's I don't know. It was never. I don't think I ever had not an option, but never anything ever occurred to me other than working in the trades and really being a heavy equipment operator was
Yep.
my it's my passion. It's what I do. It's what I wanted to do to get into it. And then, through the years, I moved up from, I started out um, on the ground, pipe layer, operator, foreman, superintendent, little project manager. And then I've been in the safety now for, this is my fourth year. But yeah, working back, I'm originally from Wisconsin, like I said. So, uh, rural farm kid, uh, and that type of environment or that type of lifestyle, livestock doesn't take a day off, right? You gotta. They don't care about the weather. They don't care if you're sick. They don't care if it's a
Mm-mm.
holiday. You gotta take care of the animals. So I was raised with that, work that has to come first, right? Regardless. And also, so it also helped me with, or not help me, but kind of help guide that path. Is I was also a rural farm kid. Is
Yeah.
you're on equipment, you're running tractors. Probably 8 years old is probably when I started. Not I'm not combining. I don't picking up rocks, right? Grandpa and whoever on the ground, they put it in second gear and they tell you to drive straight, get to the end, you turn around, anything happens, turn the key off, and
Yep.
that's it. So, but at 8 years old, you're driving the tractor and working the bucket, and so I got
Feel
to
like
do
the king
that.
of the world.
Yeah,
Eight
yeah,
years old, yeah.
yeah.
Driving tractors. I did that when
Right.
I was a
Well,
kid. I mean, it's a
yeah, you would think you're king, but all the neighbor kids are doing the same thing. So
yeah.
it's that's what you did, right? That was it. Spreading manure,
Yep.
doing the simple tillage, like not plowing, but running a disc or a drag. But that really uh, planted a seed for me at a very young age that, like, man, I really like working outside, working in the elements. Crazy as that seems. Again, from Wisconsin, we were just talking about the Arizona heat. And in Wisconsin, back then when it was get cold, right? But getting the livestock, they don't care. You need to get out there and do it. You better bundle up and you better get out there and do it. So that was always, that, kind of helped shape the direction as I look back now, shape that direction of where I went, right?
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so grew up in Wisconsin, Midwest farm kid. My first real operating job was for a company, road builder, W.H. Fuller, out of Sturtevant. By the time I got working with him, he was a big road contractor at the time, and by the time I got with him, he was kind of scaling down. So we did small subdivisions and a lot of pond work, Midwest farmers, whatever, digging ponds. So that was, running scraper, finished dozer. We had a little TD9 dresser. I loved running that thing, and I was probably in my early 20s when I started doing that, compactor. And, back then, no full cab, no cab at all, open, maybe an umbrella, right? In the wintertime, you're switching the fan blades around so that radiator's pushing air towards you to keep you warm, or you're putting a heat tube on it, right, and bringing it around, and
Yeah.
either you're freezing or you're roasting, but you're out in the elements. So, but it was, never thought anything about it. That's just the way it does, right? And it also taught me he was a real stickler on means and methods. Running scraper, if you had to get the dozer up on the stockpile or the cut, you were getting an ass chewing, right? The dozer will be up there at the end of the day. They're not, he never followed us around or babysat. So it really taught what could be done, right, with minimal. And it seems silly, but it's, you look at it and, nowadays, there's dozers chasing scrapers all over the place. You got graders leveling stuff out. He wouldn't allow it. It just, you better make the cut and you better make the stockpile right. Because if the dozer hand has to get up there, he wasn't flying out of the cab. Like I said, there was no cab. He just standing up, flailing his arms and,
Yeah, you get chewed out a couple times though, and you don't want to do it again.
Right. Yeah. You learn quick.
You learn real fast.
Yeah. So then, so I did that, I think, for a couple of years. And like I said, we were doing small subdivisions, and we're doing the mass grading, and, then the pipe guys would come in, and like, ooh, I think I could do that. I can run an excavator. I could do that. So, shortly after that, then I got to an actual underground company, right? Powers Lake Construction out of Twin Lakes. Second generation kids running. We were all young. The workforce, again, rural area. Most of the workforce was, again, probably maybe the oldest supervisor, whatever, maybe 30. Guys I went to high school with, maybe guys that were a little bit older than me. 4 years or so. We all went to the same high school.
Young guys.
Yeah, we all went to the same high school. We all, did, if we didn't know each other directly, you have that, you knew some mutual friends, right? So
that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it was cool. And they were a good company for a small rural place. What happened, what actually opened up the job for me is that, and I think what prompted their whole safety, the way they viewed safety, especially, you got to remember, this is like the early 90s, right? Small outfit. They had one of the owner's kids was on a trench box, and they were gonna. So we'd they set the manhole, and there we would stack it all the way up, put the box in, and then take off, dig lay back. He had his arm between the spreader and the manhole, and when they went to move the box, it pinched his arm and jacked his arm all up, right? And he was probably just out of high school at the time. Pitcher, high school pitcher. So that really hit home. So then I think that really helped them, again, for a small company, take a look at that and make sure that we had, we owned our own boxes. We owned our own speed shorts. We had lasers at the time, pipe lasers, no batter boards, no anything like that. We had good stuff. And that, so that was like, I look back, kind of got spoiled right away out of the box, right? New equipment. When I worked there, I started out as a pipe layer there.
That's a good and bad thing.
Huh?
That's a good and bad thing at the same time.
Yeah, so it
Spoiled
started.
like that.
I'm sorry.
To get spoiled with goods like that.
Yeah, it
When,
comes.
when you have to
It comes around, right? You know.
when you go to the next job, if they don't have the nicer things, you're like, what is this? What is this?
Yeah. Then you get
You
it.
gotta work with what you got.
You get an attitude. Why don't you have this, right? Why
Yeah.
don't? And you get knocked down a peg,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But yeah. So they had good stuff. Like I said, second generation company. The old man, and this was the company, right? If we would meet at the office or at the shop. First guy at the shop, the dad, the old man who started the company would be there, and whoever was there at the yard first had to give him a ride to the coffee shop, and then he would go have coffee with it. But that was part of it. That was part of what you did. And me being, Earl, it was always me or another guy that were giving him a ride because we were first there. And I think we were talking before, kind of, some of the history of these old timers. I call them old timers. Well, I'm an old timer now. But he used to, his claim to fame, and it's not even fame, but he used to move barns in the wintertime, jack them up, dig around them, and move them. And they had an 8mm video of they moved these barns across ponds or lakes, frozen lakes. And this isn't like the tundra. This is Wisconsin. And you hear the stories, and they dug up this video with this 8mm film, and you're watching like, holy shit! I drive by that barn every day of the way to work. And they at one time, years prior, they moved it there. They moved it
Crazy.
from. It is crazy. Can you? And so I know, ice fishing, right? You go out there, 18-inch hole in the ice. They were, when they were moving it across, water's coming up into the ice fishing holes because of the weight. But
Yeah.
can you imagine telling somebody today that you're going to move a barn across a frozen lake?
Oh, yeah, they'd look at you like you're out of your mind.
No engineer. What?
No.
Yeah, this is not Alaska. This is Wisconsin. This is but the old time, this old timer. Yeah, I say old timer. Carl Carroll was his name. Carroll boys were the owners of it, but the stuff that they used to do, and the stories, and you're young and you're absorbing all this, and it's like, it really sets in that old school mentality. Like, yeah, you're right. Why does somebody got to tell me? If the ice is good, right? You don't need any boring reports or anything like that. We're going. And that kind of set that as you're a kid, young adult, that helps mold, good, bad, or otherwise, that molds a thought process, right? So I thought that was pretty cool. And also, it's the first company. At that company, I got, like I said, I started as a pipe layer, and then got to digging mainline. And it's always the fight to be the A team or the number one. You always want footage. So they actually, it was the first one. I think it might have been the only time. Now I think about it. Brand new John Deere 892 excavator pulls up on the low boy. They look at me and they say, "That's your machine." I'm like, holy! I got to pull the plastic off of it, right?
Oh, that's nuts.
Oh, and I mean, and again, young adult, right? And I'm like, it had AM FM stereo in it.
The ego went real high now.
Dude, your head swelled.
I'm the best of the best.
Yeah. And then again, the 90s, first, we were the first company in a region there with quick couplers. Before, we were pounding pins, right? And now you ask somebody nowadays to pound pins on, everything comes with a quick coupler, right? But we were the first ones in that area. There was no internet, so you don't know what everybody else is doing. At least I didn't. It's just like, man, I got this brand new shiny machine, pulling the plastic off, quick coupler, rocking and rolling, baby.
Yeah.
Right. And they also made it to where I went, that excavator went. So, if I went to a job and, hey, there's one around the corner. No, they would bring my machine to where I was
That's
going.
nice.
You take, and it gives you pride. Then you take care of it. Your cab's clean. the entrance keys, the ins and out of that machine. It's
Yeah.
forced, right? It was. I think back at those times, and man, we were young, bunch of kids, but we were rocking and rolling, right? It was a good time. So
Yeah, that's crazy to first be the first one to get the machine
yep,
at a job. That's amazing. That's
at a young,
super cool.
in
Yeah,
young, right?
being
There's
a
other
young guy nowadays, you're not going to get that.
well, and if
And
you
all the
do,
older guys are going to get it because they've been putting in their time.
right, or if you do, you might get it for a week or
Yeah.
two, and then it's going, or you're moving, or you're going somewhere else. It's not following you, right?
Mhm.
And I always think back of how they took care of us, right?
And when you say it makes you take pride in that machine, that's like 100% true, because when I worked at the pit, the big loaders that they had probably like 8 or 9 of them, and every night they'd be lined up in a row. It's certain ones or certain guys. You were assigned to that machine, and you could go in that machine, because I would do it all the time. I'd go grab one of the big loaders if I needed it, but I would, hey, I need to use one of these machines. Oh, grab one of them. Okay. You could tell who took pride in their machine, because you'd get in it, and it was spotless.
Yep.
Or you get in it and there was wrappers everywhere and trash, and you're like, what is this? But yeah, you would get a lot of the guys that took they would take their shoes off before they get in their machine.
Yeah.
Have them sitting on the side, no mud, no nothing.
Sweeping it out. And,
Yep.
and that's what I would tell guys, and they're like, you'd have to get in machines, and, again, young, big head, crap in there, throwing it out on the ground. This is BS, and well, what do you get so worked up about? Well, because I'm sitting in this thing for 12 hours.
Yes.
Right. Half of my day is spent in this machine. I want it cleaner. I don't want to be surrounded by junk.
You want it smelling good. You want it clean.
You
want the radio to work.
Yeah. And then, if it leaves and it comes back, and then somebody trashes the inside, and next, and they didn't allow, it's not that they didn't allow it, but they had a mechanism there to limit that from happening, right? Which I always respected, and I always thought it was a good thing, right? But yeah, so and they were a good company, but then I got greedy, right? So I had a ability to join. They were a non-union company, so then I had the ability to go to a company and join the operators union out of Chicago, local 150. So I made that move. And again, it was like a $10 an hour raise. As you're sitting there as a kid, it's like, well, I can dig better than these guys. Why shouldn't I go for that money? Well, I'm glad I did. I don't regret it. I go back, I reflect back to my upbringing with my grandpa, and I remember being a kid, him telling me he wasn't he was a blue collar. He was a machinist, and he made hydraulic valves. But he was very interested in heavy equipment. Always thought it was good. I've got old pictures of him going out where they built the interstate system from Chicago to Milwaukee, I-94.
Okay.
Old, but he would always tell me, or not always, but there was a couple of conversations. Eric, well, if you get into the 150, his comment was, you could burn the effing place down and they can't fire you. I'm like, okay, because it's the union, right? The union is behind you, so it kind of always prompted, it's like, ooh, if I got a chance to get into the 150 union, I got it. That's where I want to be. So I was able to do that. The company hired me on was called Thielen Sand and Gravel, out of Antioch, and they Thielen Sand Gravel ready mix, and then they had a small little excavating division. And I heard that through the grapevine that they wanted to start going deeper, putting bigger pipe in, that type of thing. And here I am, saying before, big head, very arrogant. I went to the office one day, and I went in and talked to the branch manager, and I looked at him and I said, if you want to start doing sewer and doing it deep, you need to hire me. That's how arrogant I was, right? But got me the job.
You can't complain then.
Yeah. But also, kind of like the Powers Lake thing is, this was another second generation company the old man, and the original owner, Vern Thielen was his name. And this is again rural area. We probably eat sand, gravel, ready mix. Probably had about 20 ready mix trucks. 10 gravel trucks running in and out, maybe 12. But he started that hauling gravel and rock with a horse and buggy, and I shit you not, horse and buggy, dude. And he would stand out there at the entrance of the pit once in a while in his Oshkosh bib overhauls, his old hat, and just watch those trucks come in and out. And just, we used to tease amongst himself that he's just sitting there counting his money. But, that kind of.
You started a horse and a buggy to sit there and watch them trucks running in and out.
Right.
It's a huge accomplishment.
Absolutely. And, and then you hear these stories and you get to meet these guys and shake their hand and they know who you are because, it's like, oh, you're working. Yeah, you work for us. Right on. Yeah, I've heard about you guys out there. It's like, I don't know if it's an accomplishment, but it's a recognition that you can't, you can't put anything to it. It's like,
yeah,
you get those old timers that back then that know you and heard of you and kind of you do one of those. It's like
it does that they acknowledge you. It does feel good. I worked for a couple different companies that if you didn't do your job, the company didn't run, and then you'd get the boss walk through and you'd say hi, and it's like, oh, who are you? What do you do?
Mm-hmm.
The guy keeps you afloat.
Right? What do you do for me?
Yeah. Jeez.
Yeah. No, and these guys, like I said, they were humble. The Powers Lake guy, he moved those barns, and like I said, you know what? All he wanted was hey, Eric, you driving me to the coffee shop this morning? Absolutely. Get on in, and they go do their coffee clutch every morning, and it's just, it's hard to put into words, but it was really, it was a real cool experience, right?
Absolutely.
So, yeah. So Thielen, so up to this point, kind of back to safety, but up to this point, we were in charge of our own safety. There was no safety managers. There was no safety people on the payroll at all.
How old were you at this time? Around this point?
Probably late 20s.
Okay.
27, 28, I think. If my mind's a little gone by now, but it was mid 20s. Probably 96, somewhere in there. But still had no safety. No, kind of just on our own. And and Powers. So back to Powers Lake, I remember because of their the one kid got his arm hurt. That was the first time I ever did a competent person class. They sent me to the class, and the one story I remember out of it at this time is that they had a story about a guy getting covered up or getting buried halfway. He had passed out. And when you think about it, I don't know if this is a true story or just a shocker, but it stuck with me to this day. They dug him out, all except for his ankles. They dug him out to his ankles. He was unconscious. They put a strap around his shoulders to lift him out with the machine, and they actually ripped him in half. Because of the soil compression. It was like concrete around his feet.
Jesus.
Right. And like I said, back in the early 90s, was there fake news? I don't know if it was, but it was like, whoa. So, out of anything that it set a tone for, because there's no, like I said, there's no safety people. We were responsible for ourselves, like responsible for your crews and this and that. But it really, like, ooh, this ain't no joke, right? This is, you got to be careful. But, be careful to a sense. But yeah, so then, that was that. So then I ended up, we're going to Thielen. Was it Thielen? I think so. Thielen Sand and Gravel. Still no safety, no classes, no training, no nothing. As I remember, just that first competent person class at Powers Lake a couple years prior. So you're unchecked. You're kind of doing what you do. You do your best you can. And at that time, as I remember, like your suppliers, right? Your trench box suppliers, they were just delivery people. They were not like they're trained today, right? They actually, they're a resource now. Back then, they were a resource. At least the guys I dealt with, they were more just delivering it and then that's it. Didn't explain nothing. Didn't nothing. Um,
Now, when
so
you say box, you're talking about what you put down in the trench, right?
yeah, trench
The
box.
steel
Yep.
walls with the braces.
Yeah, and that's what we used mostly in Midwest. We had the speed shores, the hydraulic shores, but we found them at that time cumbersome, labor intense. So it was always if we're throwing a box in, regardless of what we're doing, we're throwing a box in. So Thielen, sand and gravel, again, they were big enough. They had a lot of things going on. We not only had the ready, you had ready mix, you had trucks, exposure, right? And I don't know if in my world, I was like this. I'm looking at what I'm doing. And they actually hired a safety person once, and I think I was partially responsible for her leaving because of my arrogance and my the way I viewed things. She came out to a job once, and we were digging. We're probably 12, 13 foot deep. My first shelf was at 8, but I had arrogance. I was like, you know what, this is good clay ground. I'm good. We're good. And it wasn't just me. It was the culture of the crew. Had some older guy, some older pipe layers there that didn't balk at it, and because we were production over safety. We were putting pipe in the ground. Well, she came out once and started riddling me, and you know what? Like I said, at that time, production over safety. I was making money on the jobs. I mean, 30%, right? And they were telling me this, so they were again head swell. They turned me loose, right? I was able to do almost anything, not anything I wanted, but I was just
Pretty
left
close.
alone. I was left alone. They saw me at the beginning of the job and they showed up at the end of the job. And between then, they had no idea what I was doing, where I was going. No news is good news on their end, right?
Yeah.
So she came out and she had issues, and I got fired up. And I went up to that same gentleman that I told him that if he needed to dig deep, that he needed to hire me. Well, now I'm in his office telling him, if you send that safety lady out to my job again, they said, we're going on break. And I'm not starting that job up until she leaves. And they took my side. Could you imagine telling somebody nowadays that you're going to do that?
They'd be like, "Oh, all right. Well, the door's right there. Go ahead and
Yeah. Or,
you
we
know,
need to start this conversation over. But they're
yeah."
like, but you know what? They caved. They're like, okay.
Well, that, like you said, production over safety. That's exactly what's going to happen. You mean you're gonna stop the job? Yeah.
Yes.
Then never mind. I won't send her back out.
Absolutely. And
Yep.
and again, talk about building on an arrogance I'm going to, arrogance because that's what it was. It was arrogance.
Yeah. Once you got that pull, it's like, well, I just completely dismantled the safety.
Yeah, I'm king.
What else can I do?
Right? Yeah. What are you going to turn me loose on now? So, but all good things come to an end, right? So, same company, probably about a year later, I was actually involved in a trench collapse. Guy was in the box, sandy, like sugar sand in Florida.
Okay. Yep.
Kind of beach sand.
We got plenty of that.
Yeah, we were probably about 22 foot deep. And he's a buddy of mine, right? Been working with him. He's a friend. As we said, small community. Didn't know him directly when I started working with him, but we had mutual friends, right? So, and I watched it. So digging, he's on his knee checking the pipe laser, putting the pipe in, and the sidewall of the sand came down and it flowed into that box like water and covered him up. And I was digging at the time. My digger was gone that day, so I was digging, and I watched him get covered up. And when I watched him, I mean, I remember to this day watching White Hard Hat, and the White Hard Hat all of a sudden was gone. And I'm like, those seconds, that you can't describe it.
Yeah.
Jump down, get down. Like it was me and loader operator. Get down. By the time I get down, his head pokes up. He's like this, kind of like effing turtle. Billy, we're gonna get you out. Hey man, I think my legs are broken. I'm like, oh Jesus Christ. Get him out. Well, before that, I put the bucket down in front of the trench box opening to make sure nothing more came out. Just fly down there, get the shovels out. Well, he was just cramped up, and he was on his knees checking the pipe, so he wasn't covered like completely. He wasn't standing up and got covered up. He was kneeling down and got covered up.
Yeah, and then all that pressure pushing on your body in that position. Jesus.
It was a reality check for me. Again,
Yeah.
the arrogance and all that stuff. We get done. My loader operator's sobbing over in the corner. Billy, he's downplaying it. I think his quote, because I'm like, we're shutting down and we're going to the bar. That was our answer in the Midwest, is going to the tavern. And he goes, so don't worry, Aric, I've been hit harder by a cold, he told me. I'm like, that's bullshit. He said, no, we need to rethink. I need to rethink my approach, and we gotta, because we don't know this ground. We don't know what can happen all of a sudden. So that was a real reality check for me. So that was probably 28 years ago. I went back and saw Billy. We keep in contact a little bit. I was probably back 5 years ago, 6 years ago, saw him, been hanging out, having some beers, talking about old times, and we started talking about that. It's emotional. I think back as, I almost killed my friend, and I was sobbing, having a beer. I'm like, I can't take it back, but very lucky and very fortunate that it didn't turn out worse, because it kind of smacked me in the face real quick, and you start staying up at night and thinking about, what could have happened, why in the F did you do it that way, right?
But then it completely, it really makes you think and really start thinking, what can I do different and change?
It does. And change is hard. And but it did. It smacked me across the face a couple times. That instance, and I changed my view on, or I changed my processes and my thought processes on it. But I still didn't get up by all the way in. Right. I was still the guy that, hey, I'll do the trench report, but I'm not going to sign it. I'm not going to put myself in that light. Just messed up mind, and just being kind of defiant too, right? Getting fit tested for respirator. I'm not doing that. I'm not shaving. I'm not doing all that BS. If I got to put the respirator on, I'll put it on. And it was just, I still had that kind of, not rebellious.
Shave your beard off for the respirator. You're like, I don't think
I'm not
so.
doing it. And I'm not signing. I'll do it, but I'm not signing my name to it, and I don't care. And blah blah blah. And it's like, but yeah, that. So it kind of again came back to me about being a kind of an a-hole to the safety person, and then a year later I have that instance, or that incident that crazy. But so that was steel and sand and gravel. That was, they said we had some good time, bunch of kids there too, but that really kind of changed my thought process on way to do things. And again, so younger guys there. So then I ended up going to another excavation outfit, Berger, out of Wakanda, Berger Excavating. Now these were seasoned guys, old timers, biker element. Not to quite. If they had been through what I had been through, which probably some of them had, it didn't affect them the same way. They were still blowing and going, vertical sides. I walk up to other jobs, I'm like, ooh, I got to go over here. Not having the mentality, not having the balls enough to call them out on it. It's like, you're responsible for me and mine, right? What you guys do over here, hey, whatever. I don't want to be part of it. Wrong attitude, right? It needs to be corrected.
Yeah.
But Berger was some great company. They're still in business. They're out of Wakanda. Julie Berger, the old man, again, he was, when I got there, Dale Berger was still owner. He had started out, drawing stuff up on bar napkins and doing that, and then grew into this big excavating company. And when I got there, the daughter was taking over, Julie. And that was tough. I think for her, not for me, I didn't give a shit. But bringing a girl or a woman into
Yeah.
into a shop like that. But she did good. I mean, I always had respect for her. We would meet another place. We would meet at the shop in the morning. There was some old chairs and couches that we would sit in the back, all the foremen, and make our plan. Again, no safety person, no real. We just did our own thing, right? Make a plan and then hit it. But you know what? She was always there first thing, 5:30 in the morning. She's there. 6:30 at night, she's last one to leave. And I always had the great respect for her. But yeah, it was another, but back to them, older guys, older element, a little bit different mentality, a little bit. I think still safe, but still cowboyish. I guess I don't want to say cowboy in it because we all cowboy it.
Yeah.
But funny story is I was telling a guy prior, brand new 892 quick coupler, state of the art. Well, Berger hadn't gotten there yet, right? So I remember telling one of the guys, hey, you know what? We had this 892 quick coupler. Man, you could switch buckets from the 4-footer to the 36 or whatever. And he looked at me, poked me in the chest, and he said, nothing loads a bucket like an Inslee. So an old Inslee excavate, they're Detroit, they have a Detroit diesel on them. They're dinosaurs, right? But that was the mentality, not the mentality, but that was the thought process. Is I'm trying to, hey man, they got, there's this new stuff better, no, nothing loads a bucket like an Inslee. Okay. Okay. But we had some good times. We had, they got there and we were, Berger was a, so I'm still in the 150, still, doing that thing. 150 out of Chicago was a very strong operators union. So, you get to, and so that too then gives you arrogance and a swelled head because, when you're in the union, technically you don't work for the contractor, you work for the union, right? The contractor is where you're working, but if you get laid off or fired, the union is going to find you a new job. And that's the mentality. So, it was a, kind of a union, really union environment, getting checked on by the BAs and stuff. And, you can't switch equipment. There was a rule for switching equipment and you need an operator for everything. And, so that kind of sets a mentality too in your head. It's like, cool. I'm glad I'm part of it. I'd rather be part of it than not part of it. Right. But that was good. The training, 150 training, they had all the, you could go to the training grounds and run equipment if you wanted. It was like if you're an operator, man, it was the best place to be. You could go run crane, you could go to the training grounds and just do whatever. Right.
That's awesome that you get the experience to try all the different equipment and learn it.
Yeah.
That's very nice.
Yeah. The one I did a crane class with them. It was a 7-day, I think it was basic crane. So it was half hands-on, half classroom. Dude, I did that. I took vacation days and I went down there, spent 7 days. It was like a bucket list thing. I had a blast. Go down, you learn load charts and stuff like that. But then you get to go sit your butt in the crane in different cranes, right? From friction to hydros, from lattice booms to hydraulic cranes. And man, it was a blast. I had so much fun.
Friction cranes.
Yeah.
Like a man walk?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, your friction jobs are your lattice boom, you're like drag lines. Yep. Well, nowadays maybe not, but the old drag lines are all friction. Right?
Yeah, the older ones, yeah.
Yeah. So arrogant story, right? So first day they're out there putting you on stuff just to see how you're doing, or what your eye-hand coordination is or whatever. They had this old Bucyrus Erie. I want to say it was air over hydraulic. So you could hear and the throttle for the engine was under the seat. So it's like a bar stool, but that's got this, or like a barber's chair. with the throttle was this thing under the seat, so you
Gotcha.
did that. And the test was, or the exercise was, you had to drop the headache ball into 55-gallon drums placed around a radius, right?
I've seen that. I've never done it, but I've seen the
Oh,
testing for the cranes.
yeah. And it was windy. So I'm on there and it's my turn. So I'm on there. It's like, I was doing pretty good on the other stuff. Wind kicks up. This is a free swing, again, air over hydraulic, or it was air over mechanical, no hydraulic. So it was air over mechanical. And the wind's, it's like a sail. The wind's moving that boom on me and I'm missing. And I'm missing. Not my bunch, but I'm missing it. Again, old timer sitting on that seat, or sitting down there watching me, and I starts cussing, "Get your ass out of that seat. I'll show you." He crawls his ass up there and bloop, bloop, bloop.
Yeah, but how long have you been on that machine? How long have you run that machine?
Right. No, exactly. They don't emphasize that. They just make you feel like, shit.
I ran a drill for a little bit, and it was a Gardner Denver, and it was the same thing, the air for the brakes and the clutch.
Mm-hmm.
And you'd pull the drill head out, and when I did it, it was get the job done. I was the only person. I didn't have a helper. So I would drill the holes and then load the holes with the cardboard tube all by myself.
Yeah.
But to do that, as you're doing it, you have to pull the inner sleeve out, the drill bit. And once that comes out, I had to hold the brake with this hand, push the drill bit out, and then release real quick and let it drop down.
Yeah.
So then I could put the tube in and then lining it up and then letting it into the hole without smashing your fingers through it.
Yeah.
Looking back now, I could have lost my hand so many times.
Right. Yeah. The gymnastics that they required you to do back then. Again, you're out, probably a 3-person job.
Yeah. Yeah. Hands down.
Yeah. 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 It was crazy. But I think it built character, right?
Yeah. You learn things that you'll never see those equipment like that run today because it's just outdated.
Right. It's outdated. It's not cush. And like anything, and I got nothing against it. I want to get back in one of those cushy machines too. I want to run that. I want to,
absolutely.
I want to get back into that. But it also, I don't say if it haunts me to this day, but it still gets me to this day is that you're able to do the same thing with a lot less back, right? And now today, my opinion only, but we got GPS on this stuff and people rely so much on that. And if you pull that away from them, they're over there, sucking their thumb because they don't know how to use a peep sight and know how to cut.
Yeah, I've never used laser or anything like that, and I was able to put down a pad. It's not 100% level, but I'm saying pretty close to being level with a D10.
Yeah. Yep.
And that's just looking at the side blade while you're going. There's no laser to tell you anything. It's all feel.
Mm-hmm.
So I think using all the older equipment that doesn't have all the new stuff, new technology, it builds your skills.
Absolutely. I agree 100%. I agree 100%. And then, and nothing against anybody that's
no
GPS and stuff like that. But I really think you build an operator, out of doing that and understand, how to set, not having the surveyor come out and put blue tops or do all, get out there, read the plan, set up a benchmark, get your tape, throw some stakes out, get rough graded. There's a time to ask the surveyors out, and it's not, in my opinion, it's not at the beginning of the job. You gotta have some,
It takes skill.
Yeah. No.
Nobody can just jump into any piece of equipment and say, "Here you go, you got this."
Right. And then it's off or it's wrong. Well, the surveyor, well, wait a minute. Did you not double check? Did you not, do your due diligence, so to speak?
Yeah.
And and not everybody, sees it that way. And I, part of my problem. I don't think it's a problem, but I see it that way, and I remember, and then I'm like, I watch guys sometimes, I'm just like, what the, But then it's like that's not my lane. I gotta, whatever. But yeah, and now I'm that guy. Well, back in my day, I never thought I would be that guy, but here I am, right? And so, but so that was Burger. And I think that was about 2006 I left there, and actually then I moved to Arizona. The family, we decided to make a move, which I never thought I would, like, leave Wisconsin, the Midwest, family there. All my friends I grew up with, real, very, very comfortable. Then we uprooted and moved to Arizona, which I had a job out here before I moved out here, again, with another small mom and pop outfit, right? That seems to be my MO up until, just recently.
I like the mom and pop outfits though.
There's something to be said with that, right? Came out here 2006, worked with them for about 6 years. There's the recession, they scaled down. So it's still no safety guy, still responsible. And this is 2006, 7 through 12, I think it was. Again, responsible for our own safety. Never, like I said, what I was saying before about the trench reports, I would never sign them. I'd balk at it. And you should, if you would have heard one of my morning meetings was, hey, what are we doing today? Well, what did you do yesterday until 5:30? Right? We're doing the same effing thing today. Get after it, right? No. That was me. That was me. I was never, what do you want to talk about? We're putting pipe in the ground. You want to talk about that? Well, let's talk about it as we're doing it. Not right now. Get the truck.
That's exactly how it was. What's today's plan? What do you mean what today's plan was? What did you do yesterday?
Right. Yeah. Jesus,
all right. Did you fix the problem yesterday? No.
Yeah.
Get back to work.
Yeah. You just took a long break. We left at 6:00 last night. What are you talking about? You forget?
Exactly. You got your lunch break. Now get back to work. You're like, I wasn't, what?
Yeah. That was those, and even up until, even 2006, it's like, I'm the foreman. What do you want to talk about? Let's go. You know the hazards, don't you? If you don't, you're going to find out. Which is a shitty attitude.
You'll figure it out quick.
Yeah, you'll figure it out. If not, shit. maybe this isn't the path for you, right? That's the way.
I've heard that one.
Yeah, it's
I can hire a monkey to do your job. I used to call bullshit all the time. I'm like, go ahead, hire that monkey. See how good that job goes.
Right? Yeah.
I can hire a monkey to do your job. I can't. I know for a fact you can't.
You know what? I use that. It's funny you say that because I used that once on a grader guy. We had just gotten, not the GPS, but it was a sonar on the thing that would read the string line or read the curb line, right? And we were, again, this is probably in the early 90s. And I'm watching them again, with this old school mentality. And I looked at it, I said, what the hell does that thing do? Well, it tells me the grade. I said, so you're not an operator anymore. You're just a grader driver. And I said, and I use the same thing. I said, a monkey could do your job now. Ooh, that did not go over well at all. But, it's just like, what are you talking about? That's bullshit. You don't need that that newer stuff. Just run it, But there again, hey, pipe lasers and stuff like that I was good with, right? That I was good with. But this other stuff, I was always, kicking it around. And
I had a supervisor used to tell you, if it rained, which here in Florida, it rains, especially in summer, it rains all the time.
Mm-hmm.
It rained for like a couple hours and it'll be completely gone. You'd be out in the rain working and he'd drive up. What are you guys, retarded? You guys stupid? What? He's chickens know to get out of the rain.
Right.
Their brain's this big.
Yeah.
Like, all right, well then we'll stop. And then there'll be another day where it's raining and you're standing beside your truck, under an umbrella or something. He's like, what are you doing? Get to work.
Right.
It's raining.
Right.
I don't care it's raining. You're like, pick one. Which one?
Right, exactly.
Are you going to give me shit for working in the rain or give me shit for not working in the rain?
Pick a direction. Yeah. I did, right out of high school, I did some concrete work. And, you you always, rain days were great, right? If it was raining and you're shutting down, well, in the Midwest, that means you're going to the bar early, right? And it would be raining and we're framing up and, thinking that we're going to pack it up and, go get a 30 pack or a box of beer and, drink at the shop. And sometimes, like you said, sometimes it would be, other times you're out there and you're thinking that you're going to go and you're soaked to your underwear. And, I remember one of his comments was, well, I like working in the rain. I think it feels good. It's cooler. I'm like, you're a jackass, dude. I can't.
Soaked to the bone. This is so much fun.
Yeah. But, and then, go rain days in the Midwest were like that. The way the weather fronts would come in, you'd get rained out, and being in union, you had to make sure you called up and canceled everybody, canceled trucks, canceled your operators, because if they get there, they get show up time. If they fire the machine up, they would get 4 hours. They would, so it was always that.
Yeah.
But flip the, and you know how it is on rain days. The days that you're gonna call it, an hour later the sun comes up.
Yeah.
And then the days you don't call it,
and you're so excited to leave and be done, and then all of a sudden it stops raining. You're like,
right. And then we didn't have phones back then, or if you had a pager, don't answer it. Don't look at your
phone. You're like, I'm already gone.
Gone. I already got 3 beers in me, bro.
Yeah, already gone.
Yeah.
You're still on the job site. I can see you. You're like,
yeah.
Dude.
No. Yeah. And again, that was before a cell phone. They couldn't get to you right away.
Yeah.
Maybe you had a pager or something like that. But other than that, it's like, I'm not turning around. I'm not waving to nobody. I'm gone. Right. So, yeah. Good time. I mean, those are fun times. So, but so we moved. So I moved to Arizona, 2006. A couple places. So again, back to the blue collar, the safety thing. No safety personnel manager, no safety position up until probably I went to work for a company called Pearson Construction out of Phoenix here. And he had at that time, he was kind of winding down, smaller operation. He actually had a safety guy, but he was part-time. So kind of that exposed me then to having a safety guy around, right? Which was cool. His name was Willie. Good guy, fair, right? And that's kind of what I try to do in what I'm doing in my safety position now. I think I'm fair, right? I understand. I've been out in the field. I know it. And he was like that. So I was like, this is, it's something new, having a safety guy come and check your stuff. But, he wasn't a Nazi about it, right? He was cool. So I thought, okay, that's cool. Then I came to where I'm at now, which is Aiken Gardner Construction, and they had a full-time safety guy. I came here as a project or a pipe superintendent. I've been here about, a little over 10 years now. Longest I've ever been at a company, really. 6 years it was, and I think back now, 6 years was my turnover time, which I don't know why. That's the way things happen. Either, in Illinois, I moved from company to company, then I moved from Illinois or Wisconsin to Arizona, and then whatever. But so this is actually
it's working your way to that perfect
to the sweet spot, right? Working my way to that sweet spot, which is, so yeah, Aiken Gardner. So Aiken Gardner had a full-time safety guy. His name was Cesar Martinez. And again, I came in as a superintendent, kind of not knowing anybody. Knew, a lot of the guys here were from that Pearson Construction that I had said before, so they all knew each other, and but I think I fit in real well. I fit in with the mentality. I fit in with the culture, and then Caesar as our safety director, again, very fair, very willing to teach, willing to point out and explain what certain things, right? And I always respected that.
Yes, that's
a
good thing.
Yeah. And as I got to know him again, he kind of left, he saw what I was about, and, he let me be, right. He straightened me out on a couple of things, and I took it serious, and I refocused and understood the importance of it. And, so as I was a superintendent, he would show up on my jobs, but it was more just to see how we were doing, and never never any real corrective action. Just,
Yeah.
hey, a little bit of housekeeping and this and that. I'm like, that's cool. So, um, he went off to do his own thing. Actually, yeah, he went off to do his own thing. We had a couple other safety guys in here that, safety's tough. Safety gets a bad rap. As you can talk, as I said before, I was the guy that said I'm shutting down when the safety person comes up, right?
Yeah.
And now I'm the safety guy.
Yeah.
So it's tough to they get that stigma, not stigma, but they get that, what's the word I'm looking for? Not a bad rap, but they get that.
You do. It's a bad rap because you get hated on because the guys that are out in the field working, which now you're different, and like you said, your previous guy was different. Is that a lot of the safety guys? They've never worked in the field. They have gone to school, got a degree, did what they had to do to become a safety man or woman.
A safety man, yeah. They're managing, yeah. And to be honest with you, and I don't fit into that category. And
No.
I don't fit into that. I go to these safety conferences and I try to not mingle, but interact with these guys. And I'm telling you, it's a struggle for me.
But that's what it is. It's these guys. They come into the job sites and right off the bat, they're in their head. They're there to do the right thing, which to save lives and to make sure no one gets hurt.
Right. But there's a way to come across it, right?
Exactly. You're walking onto a job site with all kinds of blue collar men and women that are pretty rough around the edges most of the times. They're not going to take any shit from anybody.
Right.
And then you get on there and you're like, hey, you can't do it this way. You have to do it that way.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you don't know how to do the job, you cannot tell someone how to do the job. So
Right.
then you have conflict where somebody that's in the field, they're like, well, you can't do it that way.
Yeah.
The safety guy is, yes, you can. I have read the book. Well,
Yeah.
the book is not always right.
Yeah. And you know what? I'm shutting the job down while you're here.
Yeah. I'm walking away. You're like, what?
Yeah. So in this, I think when you guys were out here, I told you that. It's like, if you'd asked me 6 years ago if I saw myself as a safety person, I told you to pound sand. There's no.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's not that I was against the job. It's just against the hassles, right?
Yeah.
And I don't even know if it's hassles. It's just, you get labeled and, it's like, I don't want, I got a good label. I'm out there as a superintendent. I like that, in my world, that holds a position. Now you're the safety guy. Well, okay. All right. But, but it's been good. I'll be honest with you. It's been an eye opener. Brought things to my attention that I didn't know existed. One of them is mental health, right? Up until I took this position, I didn't know that existed. I really don't. I thought the common thing was to bury it deep and cover it with alcohol, right?
Yeah, that's kind of what we do in the blue collar world. It's drugs and alcohol, or you find something to cope with.
Yes, it's any type of addiction.
Normal,
right? It's an addiction. Any type of massive consumption of, like you said, drugs, alcohol, food.
Yep.
Whatever. But mental health was one that really, I wasn't aware. And it sounds silly or it might sound dumb, but I was not aware up until 4 years ago. 4 years ago. I'm 57. So, 53, 52, didn't know. I did acknowledge it. I didn't even know it existed. And it's a true thing. It's a true deal. And, dealing with traumatic, what we do is dangerous, inherently dangerous. Anything that you do outside in the elements and that type of stuff is inherently dangerous. And, when you guys are out here, you try to be as safe as you can, but, you can't control everything.
No. And that's the thing is we get so used to it. You're so used to everything that's happening around you, all the dangerous pieces moving, that your stress level is normal at that point. So the mental health side of that, you're like, this is normal. Things flying around me,
Mm-hmm.
stuff that can kill me 24/7. I'm walking around it, and
Yeah.
it's just normal.
Right. Whoa, what was it?
Yeah.
Well, that's part of the day.
Didn't get me this time.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Yeah. It's, so that was one thing, or one of multiple, but, I know I'm kind of jumping around here a little bit, but that really kind of, okay, that's, start looking into that and,
Yeah.
and start addressing it. And, and reflecting back on my years of of going through and how I handled stress was not healthy, right? It was not, again, alcohol, drugs, food, whatever it took. Like I said, you mean not everybody drinks a 6-pack a night, right? And a 30-pack on Saturday and Sunday. That's not normal. That's
Most
not
normal
normal.
people don't. Yeah.
Wait a minute. Are you sure? Because it works for me. But yeah, it's not the best way to cope with that shit, right?
No.
But back to Aiken Gardner, right? So about 10 years, but I came in, and so up to this point, I've been, sewer, doing some dirt work, some deeper pipe, big pipe, but still pipe work. I get here, and then they do some specialty work, right? Pipeline assessments, a lot of confined space stuff, which is exciting stuff. I liked it. You're going down into these large diameter water lines. You're doing inspections on them, or you're the muscle behind it. We're not actually doing the inspections. We dewater it, we make it safe, and then we go down there with the engineers and inspect it. And then sometimes, I'm sorry.
That's like your picture you have of you.
Yes, yeah,
pipe.
right. The picture I sent you, that's my 50th birthday, crawling through. I did 4 miles of 48-inch that morning. I think that was one of the last times I was in the pipe like that. Man, it beats you up. But
that's crazy.
It was, yeah. It's an adrenaline rush for me. I always had a good time doing that. But then it leads to so then some of the other stuff we did. Then that leads to we do slip lining. So we go in there and we inspect these large diameter water lines, or like I said, the muscle behind it, and then they look for structural flaws in this. We're talking, these are main feeder lines. This is potable water. When they blow out, it's considered a catastrophe. So then we started doing slip lining and putting steel pipe inside the old pipe, making a new water line. So when I was in the field and doing that here, they kind of threw, when I came here, they threw those projects at me. I don't know why, but they did. So I got some real good experience doing that, doing not just manhole confined space, but going down into a water line, and going a mile, getting checked, open up to manhole, do a check, walk another mile. It's horizontal confined space where it's, like I said, it's an adrenaline rush for me. I like it. So
that would be kind of cool to do.
It is. It's not for everybody. I don't know if I always felt real comfortable down in there. And then, of course, and then my, go back to arrogance. I had a story once. I had a guy, we had some joints. We were doing an inspection and had to do some spot repairs. Concrete guys had nothing to do, so they come down, going to go in. So first I asked everybody, I said, anybody claustrophobic, right? It's not time to be proud or anything like that. No, we're good. Hey.
Go find out.
We're gonna find out. You're gonna fuck around and find out.
Yeah.
So we go down in, go in a little bit, and or we go down in and tell them to turn their lights off, right? Turn the headlamps off, and it's dark where you can't see.
Yeah.
In front of your face, right? So going along, and we get to this one was a 60-inch water line. Get in there. There's a butterfly valve. One of the isolation valves, and it's sweating, right? It's not leaking, but there's moisture on it, so it draws their attention is to that, right? And this is the smart ass I am. So hey man, what's with the valve? Yep, that's one of the isolation valves. We got one here, one up at the plant, locked out, tagged out. Good. You can see it working on their head. Man. Well, I said, before they got it, I said, that's not the one you got to worry about. So we got control of that one. They said, it's the one up at the plant. I said, that one's remote operated. I said, so, apps these days, you never know, right? Somebody could hack into it, which was a total falsehood, right? We had it disconnected, we had it locked out, but I'm an asshole, right? So and these are the concrete guys, the guys that said they weren't, claustrophobic. So I told them that story, and then you could see them like getting concerned. Go 100 yards or so, we're stopped. Hey man, what would happen if somebody opened that valve? I said, well, I said, you get a nice write-up in the paper. I said, your wife would probably get a good settlement. But that, the manhole we went down, the hydrant next to it, I said, that's where you'd be coming out at. Like, just messing with them. Really, I mean, it was a mind trip. And then I found out one of the guys had a panic attack down there the next day, and I kind of felt bad. But hey, if you can't have fun,
that's right. You gotta make some jokes. Gotta liven it up a little bit. Laugh here and there.
Yep. But so that kind of relates to that picture. But yeah, so I did that, and then did that for a while, and then a PM position opened up at Aiken Gardner, and I threw my hat in the ring on that. I did that for about 2.5 years, and to be honest, that wasn't for me. That was not. I did not have the people skills to talk to engineers and like as much, and I just couldn't. I couldn't, And the operations manager here, Mike Jewicki, saw that because I worked with him. He was the superintendent in the field. Now I'm in the office, and he can see I was getting frustrated and not happy. And then he came and approached me. Hey man, what do you think of? Because since Caesar left, we had a couple other safety guys here at Aiken Gardner that just didn't work out. Didn't have the people skills. Didn't have whatever it took to, relate to the guys in the field. Again, like we were talking about. Book smart, not field smart. So he goes, hey man, what do you think about? Would you be interested in the safety position? I'm like, after this PM gig, yeah, because either that or I'm going back out. I'm going to go back as superintendent. But it was a great move. You know what? Great move. I really enjoy being the safety guy. I've got 2 people that work with me, Jose and Desiree. We're about 350 employees, and a great bunch of people. I couldn't ask for a better place to be the safety manager at than is at Aiken Gardner.
You guys have a great group of people.
Yeah, a lot of seasoned guys, a lot of we've got some superintendents out here that have been with this company. I think Aiken's 36 years old. 33 years they've been with this company, right? Where I was talking before, 6 years I bounced, something would come up, I either, whatever.
Yeah.
But 30 years at a company, dude, that's a testimony.
Yeah.
And a lot of our superintendents, 20 plus years in the field, right? So, it's not like you're reinventing the wheel with these guys. They know they came from what we were talking about this whole time is. They take care of themselves, right? They don't need to be like policed, and that is so. I can't even tell you what the days go by. It's like you might get a fender bender, something small, but the catastrophic stuff. I better knock on wood on that one. But because they're so seasoned and they're so good and they get it, right? They get it. And it started, and what happened is it started with Cesar Martinez back when he started here, helped develop that culture. And now, now it's just my job to keep it growing and keep it moving forward with the times, right? And that's kind of what led for me to, have you guys come out and what was that? End of March, you, Tiffany, and your kids were out and presented to us, right?
Yes, which was an amazing experience.
Yeah, it was great.
We loved it.
Yeah, first time ever doing something like that, so I was a little nervous. We talked about the format or where we were going to do it, and it's like, you know what, we're doing it on the job site one, and we're going to do it in the shop on the other, and
that's good with me. I get to go sit back out in the dirt. I'm about it.
Yeah, no, and it was so well received. I think I told you afterwards. Even my skeptics, the guys that, the like I was like, geez, now listen to this, but man, they hit home, and it's one of those things that we try to, or I try to, again, keep that culture. It's already established. It's just up to me now to keep
It's
it
a reminder
and keep it evolving, right?
Yep.
And we talk about best, you can only hear it from me or your other safety guy or whoever so many times. You need that new face, that new blood, that new story, and your story, your firsthand story of how your accident. There's no better way to, in my opinion, to set an example or set a tone than to hear it from firsthand.
Yeah, I 100% agree, and that's why we do this, is because every safety meeting I've ever had, it's always a slideshow. It's always, so and so got hurt at this mine or this job, and that's it. The slide goes to the next slide, and you're like, all right, cool. By the time you leave that safety trailer and you get back down to your job site, you have completely forgot about what you even listened to, because you're just focused on getting back to work.
It's an assembly line, right?
Yeah.
It's just pictures. There's no backstory. There's no impact. How it impacted the family. How it impacted. Hey man, how the dreams I had or the goals I had are no longer.
Yeah.
They won't be.
And it really helps when you see me in person, you see the scars I have, and I show you all the scars and what I've been through, and then you see the slideshow that we have of the hospital pictures, and it helps put it into perspective that this can happen to you, and if it does happen to you, no one tells you about the road of recovery and what you have to go through. It's rough.
Yeah. No, and and when you were talking, I think we were talking about, the addictions, right? And we joked about it before about, blue collar and how you deal with stuff and, alcohol and drugs. But now all of a sudden you're put in a position where you need to take this. This is part of that. And then, like, you were telling me, they give you all this medication.
Oh yeah, they'll load you right up.
Yep.
Here you go.
And you to drop it like that.
Yep. Yeah, and it's crazy because before this ever happened to me, I've met guys that have been hurt on the job, lost a leg, broken arm, broke a back, whatever. And then they get hooked on these painkillers from the doctor because they're like, oh yeah, here's a whole bottle of those.
Mm-hmm.
Done. They have ruined their life because they become so dependent on it and so addicted to the painkillers that they can't get off, and they'll do whatever to get them.
Yeah. Again, whatever goals and whatever you thought you had planned for your future.
Yeah, it's a goodbye.
And then add that to it, right? Then all of a sudden, now I may consider yourself an addict, or maybe, but I'm addicted due to this accident that I had to get the pain. Now I'm like, oh, I'm eating these things like chiclets, and that takes it. Then all of a sudden, that's a whole different path, right?
Yeah.
And it's just like you said, getting hurt's one thing, and then it's the collateral damage that nobody talks about, the impact to your family, the impact to yourself, the impact, your mind well-being. And it's, man, it just can't, you can't emphasize, or you can't tell that by reading a news bulletin from a mass toolbox talk that's put out to everybody, right?
Yeah, because most of the guys are going to sit there just like I used to do. Mm-hmm. You look around and you're like, cool. You're sitting there, and all you're doing is you're waiting for them to be like, all right, go ahead.
Yeah.
Meeting's over. Oh, all right, good.
Or, they're sitting there, well, sucks to be you, man. You know what? I'm going to go, right?
Tough shit for that guy.
Yeah, no, it sucks to be them, not me. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, when you can hear it firsthand, and, I think it does. And it's not just me. It makes it truly, it's impactful. And I want to thank you guys again for coming out. And it's funny. I asked Tiffany because I really don't have a big social media presence. And it was funny because I saw the email from her back when she first reached out. It was like on a Monday, and I kind of ignored it until Friday, and then I'm like, actually clicked and read it because you get so much BS coming across. I'm like, okay, what is this? Huh. All right. So I reached out, and fast forward, you guys came out. It was a great thing. But I asked her once. I said, how did you ever, like, out of all the people in Arizona, all the companies, how did you find me? Again, I've got as little social media presence as I don't have a lot, and so I don't know how you really. All I heard was, I have my ways, so I left it at that. Pick your battles. I'm like, okay, but I'm thankful. I loved it that you guys came out, and now I'm following you. I see where you guys go on social media, and I promote you to whoever I talk to. Because it's as tragic as it is, you guys you're doing the right thing by sharing it, and that takes strength too. In my opinion, that takes a lot of strength to have to reaccount that.
Yeah.
Tell that each time. But it's
Some days it's easier, some days it's not so easy. But
I can imagine. I mean, I know I can't even imagine. But it's good, and that's what we talk about the safety and evolving and using different tools to get the point across.
Yeah.
So
no, I definitely am honored that you guys had us out there, and we appreciate it. It was definitely an amazing experience to go and see everything you guys do and the elements that you work in every day.
Yeah.
In the desert, in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah. I'll invite you back out in August.
Yeah, well, let's do it.
120. Yeah. Yeah, no, it's all good stuff. It's good, and we're plugging away. I think, like I said, we're 350 plus or minus employees. We got some right now. We got some good work, deep work. The job you were coming out on, we're 30 feet deep. Just plugging away, and like I say, it's a different environment, and I can sit here and talk to you, and we got 12 or 13 sewer crews. Figure 7-8 guys on each crew. We got concrete crew, and I'm with like I said, with our with the seasoned guys that we got, I am not if it was, I'd be on pins and needles, like checking my phone, talking to you, checking on my phone, but not that. It's I am very thankful and I want to say blessed that I am able to be the safety manager at Beacon Gardner.
Yeah.
And I like I say, I wish other companies had that. I talk to guys that their phones blowing up all the time, and I hope I'm not jinxing myself because I am superstitious on that. But it's good stuff. So I don't know what else we got. I guess again with the safety thing, I guess I try to provide. We try not to promote being the safety cops or anything like that. It's just breaking old habits. And I use this as an example. Took a rigging class. We trained the trainer rigging class. So one of my first things was when I went out and my team went out to talk to guys about rigging and about breaking old bad habits from what we learned from the old timers that were delivering sand and gravel and horse and buggy and shit, right? Or moving houses across lakes. Was how to tighten up a shackle, right? Hey man, what's the right way to tighten up a shackle? You tighten it all the way and back a turn. That's what I was taught.
That's
ain't right. Ain't right. Ain't the way to do it.
Like a quarter turn off. That way it's not.
You don't have to have the wrench in your pocket to tighten it up, but it's not. But that's not the right way. It needs to be tight, and I use that as an example to getting away from bad habits, old bad habits. And
it's crazy because that alone that's the way that I've been taught. Anybody I know that has been taught that way is that tighten it all the way up, tight, and then like a quarter turn off. And then I always thought to myself, like, we just loosened it back up. Why did you? That's holding something in the air.
Right.
Like, oh, it ain't never gonna come off like that.
Right.
All right.
Yeah,
All right.
I'm good with that. Right.
That works.
Yeah. But but it's one of those things, and I tell it's what worked for us, but it didn't. I'm careful how I say it is what we did in the past doesn't always make it right. And I would, and what I want to promote here is that I want those old habits to stop with me and not pass those on to the next generation that's going to pass them on to the next. There's a time to put a line in the sand and say, okay, you know what? Yeah, we used to do that, and we got away with it, or it was that was the norm.
Yeah.
We don't want it to be the norm anymore. Hey, I'm going to teach you this is the right way. Now, if you decide to back it off, I can't control that. But you were told we did it the right way, and and that's where safety is. Like you said, you say in your thing is that you can only be so safe. You can try to do what you can do what you do, but the human element, you can't control it. Did the guy take a right out of his driveway instead of a left? Did that change the direction of the whole day? I don't know, right? But I don't know, rambling now.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. So any plans where's your next speaking event?
We're supposed to be going to Pennsylvania. Speaking
Okay.
up there, we recently went to Columbus, Georgia, and spoke for Chairman Foods.
Yep.
That was pretty awesome. Columbus, Georgia, if you've never been, definitely a really cool place.
Yeah.
A lot of history.
Okay.
A lot of history. All the buildings are brick. What was pretty cool is the hotel we were staying in was a Marriott, but it used to be a grain mill.
Oh, no kidding.
They actually had the grinding wheel.
Mm-hmm.
They had that out front set up. So it's pretty neat that they still had that stuff, that half of the building was still original. Tiffany found the original sign in one of the rooms that that's downstairs. We checked that out.
That's cool.
They have a box train that goes down the middle of the road.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't cross the street. It goes down the street.
Right.
You can drive beside it, and there's nothing from stopping you from hitting it.
Right. Yeah. There's no delineation or any barrier. And
I was blown away by that.
Yeah. Here's a newsflash. Train has the right of way.
I was like, this is crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah. So, we're doing it.
Yeah. No, you should.
There's more and more.
Yep. Good. I'm glad. And it's needed. Right. And like you said, it's not just heavy civil side. It's all blue collar. It's all working out outside or even inside, but in the elements, in these conditions that, sometimes are controllable and sometimes are not. Right.
Yeah. Like when we went to Chairman Foods, they have a thing that cooks. It's just like a big pressure cooker. It's a huge furnace, and it just rolls the food in, they cook it, comes back out. But they were telling us that the water that it sprays on the bottom afterwards gets up to like over 200 degrees.
Mm-hmm.
You can reach in and touch it.
Right.
So something just like that, working around that, you get that on, it's burns.
Right. Yeah. You're going to get scalded, right?
Yeah. It's going to hurt bad.
Yeah. Hot water. Like you said,
you don't have to be out swinging hammers to get hurt.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, absolutely. It's just, what we're all in the blue collar exposed to. And, everybody has their different exposures, but we are exposed to hazards and dangers that, the white collar doesn't know or doesn't understand. And, what we talk about here, do our families even understand some of what we're up against and what we do? I can tell you, like I said, you asked me before, I've been married for 33 years, or oh my God, if she sees this and I'm hesitating, I'm going to ask for an asterisk. Sometimes I sugarcoat it, sometimes I don't, even to this day, I just don't want, it's okay. I don't share maybe as much as I should have back then. It was just, again, oh, it's part of what we do. I just accepted it, and then have another beer, and then
Yeah.
that was it.
And
But
me and you, we've talked about that before, and you said, which after you said it, it really, I think I thought about it after we got done talking a lot, is how you'd go home, she'd ask you, how was your day? Good. And you
Yep.
left it at that, and that's because
That's
you
right.
said you didn't want to relive the day.
Right.
And that's so true. There's so many times that I would come home and Tiffany would say the same thing. How was your day? That was fine.
Yeah.
And it's because you don't want to bring up all the bullshit that you just went through the whole day.
Right. And
Or
it could
the time you might have broke a leg or something, and you're like, oh, I don't even want to the day was fine.
Yep. And it could be good or bad. Doesn't even have,
Yeah.
I mean, it's just been my common answer for years.
Yeah.
How was it? It was good. It was fine. Right. And then once in a while, elaborate on some crazy stuff that might have happened. But other than that, it's a blank answer. It's okay because, like I said, I don't want to relive it. I don't want to go down in the weeds and then, get, if it was something that get you fired up, and then it all comes
and then,
back up. I'm done. It's past. And, and I kind of, when I ran crews, that was my thing, is that, I told them, tomorrow's a new day. I don't hold anything over, what happened today. We're going to learn from it. But, let's say you're pissing me off or I yelled or whatever. But, hey, tomorrow's a new day. We're going to start out new slate.
Yep.
You might piss me off again, but it's not going to be piled on from what you pissed me off yesterday. I'm going to try to, make that different. And it's just a whole new thing, right? So, yeah, it's all good.
Yeah.
It's all good. So.
Well, Aric, it was an honor to have you on the podcast. It was an honor to have you to come out to speak for your company.
Yeah.
I'm very happy that we were able to meet each other.
No, me too. I'm glad our paths.
Yeah,
I'm glad our paths crossed.
Absolutely.
Like I said, I don't know how that came to be, but I'm glad it happened. Right. And
Tiffany, she's like a spy. She's
good.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have my ways.
Yeah.
Hey, if you're not gonna elaborate right away, I'm not gonna poke the bear. Right? So, no, good stuff. I appreciate, hopefully, people find these stories interesting, if anything. But yeah, that's my blue collar journey, right? That's got me to where I'm at right now, and I've been very fortunate. It's been I've had a good career. I've had a good life doing this, and I wouldn't trade it for anything.
That's awesome. I definitely found it interesting that your whole story. It was there's a lot that you've done in your life.
Yeah, and I'm sure and there's plenty of guys like me out there, right? I'm not isolated. I'm not a one of a kind. There's plenty of those stories, and and maybe that'll prompt guys to say, hey, you know what? I got some interesting stories too.
I hope it does, because it's really hard to get the older guys on the podcast, because when you say, hey, you want to come on a podcast, they're always like, what? No, why do I want to do that?
I was a little hesitant too, right? Because it just, I don't know why. It's just, but I'm glad I did it. I'm glad we came on. I'm glad we were able to do this back and forth. And again, I really appreciate you guys, what you're doing and everything.
No, it was a good time.
Yeah. Right on.
It was awesome having you on.
All right.
You take good care. Have a good rest of your day. Take it easy. Be safe. All right.
All right.